Good evening, folks. So I'm just going to do my trade breakdown from my buy on pound yen today. So I got involved in a buy after 12 p.m., 12 noon, and the idea was based on breaking away from the sort of range that we were in previously. So if I just mark up we're in the replay tool, and if I just mark up the 4-hour resistance zone, we can kind of see during London session here, we have closed above resistance. Okay, so you could essentially buy in here. However, knowing where we are and the fact that we've failed to break out of here for so long, it's kind of dead. You know, I don't want to be buying out of resistance into a resistance zone of a higher time frame. The fact that we also have a weekly resistance here and a resistance here, I would prefer to be above those levels. So now that this RD candle has closed above, I was sort of interested in where we were looking at. Now, if I just draw on here, if I look left and we're at this resistance, right? This resistance has basically formed due to this, okay? And this would be the most recent looking left support and resistance zone on the 1-hour chart, okay? So we can see that we're bang on that level here. And if I just fast forward one more hour, we can see that we done this, right? And this is where I got involved in the buy, right? And I'll kind of talk through. So this is my buy position, and if I just drop the 30-minute time frame, which was my trading time frame, I will talk through and break down my buy. So because we are sort of now within this zone, we should go on to test the top end of the range, okay? But I'm just targeting the wick fill, okay? And I'll kind of talk through why I targeted that and how I came to recognize this as a trade. Because just before I even do that, because essentially what I would typically do, or what you would, anyone that trades like support and resistance, typically how I like to trade is, well, if we close inside a zone, I would be looking for some form of structure. Okay, so the sort of structure I'd be looking for is, if we close inside, I'd be looking for either price to pull back, form a support, and then we can look to target the highs or continue to the top. Or the only other way I would look to get involved in that would be, well, if we just draw this again, I would look for a deeper closure inside, and then maybe price to form a support in here, and then I would look to buy that to the top. Because essentially what we're doing is we're moving up in the market, okay? But what that candle closure has done has basically already formed the tire support. So it allowed me to enter on this close, and it's more evident as I go down on the time frames. And if I just let me just erase this box for a moment. If I go to the 30-minute chart, this is where I entered on this time frame, and I'll kind of walk through what I was seeing. So looking at where price came from, okay, so we were stuck in this zone, right? And we had broken out, right? So essentially what you could say is, you could say that like our most recent support and resistance is sort of like in this area here. Let me just draw this, like in this area here, right? And then what we've done is we've broken out, right? Now see, when that candle broke out, the next candle pulled down, respected the weekly resistance, but most importantly respected the zone. It's then flipped and it's pushed bullish, and it's filled the previous wick, right? So that's sort of pattern I seen before this trade. So I was thinking to myself, well, what's the chances of us replicating what we have just seen? And what I was looking at was, well, we have a lower time frame range in here in terms of resistance, pushed down, reacted here as support, and then we have pushed and we have closed outside of the range, just like this candle's done, only we've done that here, okay? So my thought process then is, well, what if the next candle pushes down and respects this resistance as support, and as it flips, I can then target this wick fill. Now, that's the thought process behind the idea, and the fact that we are trading within the zone left. So, like I said previously, like this is going to be our zone across here, right? We have closed inside. So typically I'd be looking for candles to close inside, push down, form its support, and then buy that up. But what we have done is we have just formed the higher support, basically bang on the support lows, and then the actual higher support what's closed inside, if you know what I mean. So what price has done then is we've pushed up, formed a resistance at the support, and then we've closed inside. So that gives me an option to buy on that candle and look to push up. So rather than waiting for price to continue and then form its higher support, maybe somewhere up here, for example, I can get in this option here, and it'll allow me to get in um, at an earlier entry, but it's basically at the bottom. So, because there's every chance that price just continues and doesn't actually form its higher support, to give us that buying opportunity. So, the key things for me was we have now formed a higher support, which is prices then closed inside this, the hourly range looking left. So there's every chance that price is then going to go on to test the opposite end of the range, right? But I'm not targeting the opposite end of the range, I'm just targeting the wick fill. So if I bring on my long position, this is my position here. So what I waited for was price to open, push down, respect 161, and respect the support, and then flip for a wick fill, kind of like this candle. So if I skip through 30 minutes, that's exactly what's happened. And if I look at this on the 15-minute, see that the higher support's not as evident in here on this time frame, but on the 15-minute, this is exactly. So we've pushed up, formed a little higher support prior to 161, which is kind of like the range lows of that range looking left, and then we've closed inside. So I have waited for that higher support, but it's more evident on the 5-minute in a sense that we've pulled back into previous structure. We've then respected that, and as that candle's flipped, broken the high of the 5-minute, it's allowed me to enter, and I put my stops below the support. Okay, so I'd planned the trade, I'd understood my entry, I'd understood my target, and I'd understood my stop loss. So I marked up the candle low as my get out of jail card. See if price starts to break down and starts to break its own low, I'm going to exit my position. And the reason for that was because if price is trending bullish and it opens, pushes down, respects the resistance as support, respects 161, and then flips bullish, I don't expect price to come back down and break its own low because we're trending bullish. If price was to do that, we would then be changing structure on the lower time frames. So if we look at this on the 5-minute, what price we'd then be doing is, so we've pushed down, we've then pushed up, and if we start to break our own low, which is here, we're obviously then pushing down, and there's a chance that then we can do that in the market, which is change structure, and then we could potentially close within this range and then test the bottom end of here potentially. So that was my trade for today. That was my entry, stop loss, take profit, and how I was going to manage the position, because usually when I enter positions on like a 30-minute chart, usually there's a lot more structure, like for example, kind of like this, where you can identify areas within the previous range for areas you can manage. But in this situation, we're trending, we don't really have any sort of deeper pullbacks, so I'm just going to use the wick low, and that is lower time frame support. So if I just skip through one more candle, we can see that we formed a resistance, but we respected the low of the previous. We respected 161, and I set an alert on this low because I was working. So, you know, if I was watching this, I wasn't going to micromanage it. I said to myself, I'm just going to alert it, and if the alert comes, I'll come and exit. Boom, easy. I didn't want to sit and watch this, let emotion come into play and so on. So you could say, well, price come up a couple of pips. You could have closed that. That's correct. However, I wasn't really managing this in terms of I wasn't actively watching this trade. I just set my alerts, and if they come off, I might check it every half an hour. So, but we found the resistance, and this is the 12:30 to 1. So the next candle, 30-minute candle, opens, pushes down, and just pings straight up. And if I just go to the 5 minute, the lower time frames, the 15-minute, if you were looking at this on a 15-minute time frame as well, you can see that this is the zone of the 15 for the support. We have pulled into that zone. Yes, we've closed below support, but we haven't broken structure. Structure still intact, and we're still in the support zone. We've then formed a support again here, and then we've got that push with a bit of volume that's come into the market. And if I just skip to the 1 hour chart, and if I just bring on my zone here, which is here, oh, wrong. Let me just draw from here. We can kind of see that we then tested the top end of that range. So that's how the trade played out today. And if I just kind of skip to where price is at the moment, that's where we are. So we're now forming another little consolidation. But that was my trade breakdown, my sort of thought process through my entry. Identifying, yes, we were at a resistance, but identifying we had closed above the resistance into this zone looking left, and the fact that we have already formed that higher support on a lower time frame give me an option to get involved in a trade and see how that plays out and target the high. So that was the thought process on that, and the entry was based on a 30-minute time frame and just watching how the candles form and how the lows are being respected and the sort of areas we're breaking from. Price is struggling to break down. So if we're struggling to break down and we've just broken out, there's only one way we're going, which is up. So that is my trade breakdown on GJ, and I'll get that uploaded. But thank you very much.